you noticed that reliable sources and liberal sources tend to be blurred into the same thing? It's the NewsBusters podcast. I'm Tim Graham, executive editor. It's a free speech day with Free Speech America director Michael Morris and staff writer Tom Olahan. Welcome, Tom, the newbie.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, we have. We've just gotten through some elections. One of the things that you guys have been looking at is how are the aggregators doing? You know, that's one of the interesting things that if you go to Google News, if you go to Apple News, Yahoo News, what stories are selected for you? I think a lot of people must get that on their phones. I mean, that's what they think the news is.
Well, it's a great question. And, you know, we're going to riff off of what NewsBusters done. You guys have been doing this for a long time. And you guys recently reported that, people don't trust the media. Surprise, surprise. And there's no, you know, there's an obvious reason why. It's because they're getting terrible information. They're getting biased information, and it's nonstop. But with that mistrust comes this vacuum of sorts. Mm-hmm. Where are people going? Well, they're fleeing from legacy outlets, these elitist media entities, and they're trying to find other sources online. And unfortunately, what we're finding is they're getting much of the same thing. So people have these fun things called cell phones in their pockets. Everyone's got one now. And there are news sources that are brought up on their phone. Okay, well, where are these news sources coming from? Everyone seems to have an Apple iPhone or some sort of Android. Android. Samsung. In my case, you know, a Google, a Pixel, you know, something like that. There's two sources. So you've got Apple News, you've got Google News. If you are still logging onto a browser, okay, maybe you have an MSN account, a Microsoft account, right? Well, you're getting MSN. That's the first thing you see a lot of times when you log in on your computer. Some people still have Yahoo accounts, okay? That's their email. Well, what are you seeing? You're seeing Yahoo News on that page. Believe it or not, people are still using AOL, okay? Yeah. AOL websites, all right? What do you see? AOL News. Well, stop and think for a minute. Where are these sources coming from? I bet you most people aren't asking that question, and instead they're being fed nonsense and drivel time and time again on these aggregator sources.
I think we just need to say, I hope there's nobody out there that thinks that Google has an actual news staff, right? Is that, you know, Apple News isn't actually a news outlet, right? These are all aggregators. They're ones who take other people's news. So, like, for example, right before I came in this morning, what's at the top of my Google News? And I think it changes depending on who you are, but you're still going to get Wall Street Journal, CNN, Al Jazeera, one Fox News piece, which was a surprise, Axios, CNN again, ABC, NPR. It's a liberal diet they're feeding you. But you, Tom, were writing about what happened with the Democrat campaigns and scandals, which they hate.
Yep. We took a look at the last 4 weeks of the election, and we did find just nonstop leftist sources, tons of MSNBC, ABC News, a shocking amount of Salon, which hopefully you haven't even heard of. So all that terrible stuff, and yes, Al Jazeera. But what we did not find a lot of was coverage of election scandals. We looked for Jay Jones' horrific election scandal, all the awful stuff he said about
wanting to put two bullets in somebody.
Yeah, so his own colleague, in fact.
Yeah.
And his colleague's children, along with some other awful remarks about how if more police officers get shot, maybe that would change their on-the-job behavior. Mm-hmm. And this behavior doesn't just impact Jay Jones, but was also impacting the Democrats' candidate for governor, Abigail Spanberger, because she was asked if she would call for him to drop out of the race, which she did not do.
Right.
But
which apparently worked.
Yeah. And it worked because the news, as your department covered, and the aggregators, as we covered, just basically ignored it. We found out of 2,240 stories we tracked, 14 covered their scandals and the scandals of other candidates, such as New York City Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani.
Let me underline that. Let's underline that again. 14 out of 2,240 focused on a Democrat scandal. Now, I guess there's a chicken and the egg question here, which is if you're picking from the Washington Post and NPR and whatnot, and they're all saying, shh, we're not talking about Jay Jones, then, I mean, they would say, well, don't blame us. It's all the original sources that didn't want to talk about it.
Right. And look, that's the problem, right? So if you're only going to pick from these leftist sources, then by that nature, what you're doing is you're suppressing any other ideology. So you're suppressing conservatives. You're suppressing free thinkers. You're suppressing even people on the left that don't agree with the candidates that they had. So it's wild stuff.
Yeah, it's like you see these. It was an old clip of Barack Obama. I don't know why I was sad. It was an old clip. I was all ready to like post an article on this, and then I realized he said it in June, where he's like, everybody can't have their own set of facts, And generally, when liberals say that, they're saying you're supposed to only use our set of facts. Your set of facts aren't facts. I mean, so what on earth do they give? Do you remember anything, Tom, that Salon, they actually ran from Salon? Does it have a slightest bit of news value?
What I would say generally not. Now, the one thing Salon did was provide the only single example of Mondami's scandal coverage.
Oh, okay.
And this really enlightened the users using these aggregators, because it basically said, maybe he did this, maybe he didn't. It said it very dismissively. And this is, of course, about him making 9/11 about Islamophobia and his remarks about his aunt feeling uncomfortable in New York City. Now we know it's not his aunt.
Yeah. Then he claimed it was his cousin, who they all called an aunt. What? Yeah. I mean, well, once again, you have a chain of things. He says this sort of thing, and then the fact checkers don't get involved to explore it. I mean, yeah, the New York Post or somebody's going to get involved and say, who's this person? And I guess they found an aunt who never wore a hijab. This whole story about his aunt was afraid to wear a hijab on the subway. And the aunt didn't even live in America. I mean, it was so crazy. And then he's like, I've located a cousin who's dead. That's who I was talking about, So it's just amazing. So, and then I guess that happened with the New Jersey race as well, because the networks or the national news outlets didn't want to talk about Mikey Sherrill's scandals.
Oh, absolutely. And in the vast majority of cases, except one time when they let Fox News handle it, it was very brief in a single sentence or single paragraph. And what was really incredible was that in one of these very limited cases where she appeared, they used it as a kind of girl boss moment.
Oh,
it was a section about her overcoming adversity. It's like
she overcame her cheating scandal.
Yeah, and like her opponent said these awful things about her, but here's how she overcame it.
Okay.
They didn't mention her other scandals there either. She's also been accused of insider trading during the COVID pandemic.
Right. Now notice people, how we're so generous in saying this was a Democrat scandal story when it was a Democrat scandal paragraph. But we're still going to say, we acknowledge that it actually came up briefly as something she overcame. And so it's even worse than what the numbers we have actually say. And then this puzzled me when I saw it. You said ex-owner Elon Musk's AI chatbot Grok endorsed Virginia Democrat candidates for governor, lieutenant governor, the horrible attorney general candidate, and a few other ones, while recommending 0 Republicans. What's Grok doing endorsing candidates?
Well, I want to circle back. I'll Jin Saki back here, Tom. And, so what's so important about what is going on with these big tech news aggregators here is something similar to what happened in the 2020 election. If you recall, the Media Research Center actually did a poll and put out a study on what happened in 2020. 4.6% of Biden voters, had they known about the Biden family scandal, they would not have voted for Joe Biden. We wouldn't have had to suffer through the Biden era, nonsense that we had to endure. But for big tech and big media, these elitist media outlets hiding that information from the American consumer.
It's absolutely true. Look, this is bias by omission is the worst kind of bias because you don't know what you've seen. But I just find it bizarre that Grok is endorsing candidates. I don't understand, I guess you ask it questions and it tells you Abby Spanberger's great.
Well, the answer, its ending explanation mentions something about how wonderful their progressivism was.
Yeah.
But what I found the most incredible, though, was that it talked about Jay Jones essentially being a breath of fresh air following the partisanship of the prior attorney general.
Oh, my gosh.
Wanting your political opponents dead seems like a much more intense type of partisanship.
It would.
Than anything he could possibly attribute to his predecessor.
If somebody tried to say that on television, that Jay Jones was a nonpartisan breath of fresh air, the laughter, the derisive laughter, the ROFLMAO, that's just unbelievable. So, but these are all the things now that there is even in off-year elections, we have to be concerned about what they're not going to tell us. And obviously, there was a whole lot they didn't really want to cover these races at all, and that's to some extent because the Democrats decided, no, we're doing fine. We're ahead.
And look, it's Grok that you're talking about here.
Yeah.
So this is Elon Musk's XAI, which arguably could be considered one of the better AI chatbots out there, and that just underscores how biased these AI chatbots actually are. We've seen time and time again when we ask, just blank question, and we see leftist results. And that's because these same artificial intelligence chatbots are being fed, just like the aggregators, the elitist media outlets that the American people are running from, that you guys have exposed over and over again over at NewsBusters.
We want some of our stuff in the chatbot's ear, we want some of that. Yeah. The chatbot's no more reliable than anybody else who spends all their day listening to NPR.
Right, and Elon Musk calls it the worst of the bad, the best of the bad. Well, we don't want just the best of the bad. All right, we want actually, both sides to get a chance here. We shouldn't be suppressing one side and favoring only the left.
So then, you guys had reported Google's been busted for actively suppressing Grokipedia. When they asked, Google search was asked about Grokipedia, it said, "Did you mean Wikipedia?" And then Google taunted users with the least impartial source possible, a Wikipedia article on Grokipedia. That just blows my mind.
And I want to tell you, that article appeared twice before the first Grokipedia entry, which showed up on the third page.
Oh man. This is one of those things. Always remember, if it's not on the first page of your Google search, most of us don't go past the first page. So that's, and you guys have found this repeatedly with candidate websites, that when you actually go searching for a political candidate, the Republican result is not on the front page. I remember I think it was the 2020 primaries where it's like you couldn't find any of the Republicans on the front page, but you could find, the most obscure, what's her name? Marianne Williamson was on the first page.
Yeah,
but not Ron DeSantis.
We've been on this since the 2022 midterms. Yeah, exactly right. We searched presidential campaign websites. We searched senators. We searched Republicans in the House. You mentioned it repeatedly. What Google was doing is it was suppressing Republican candidates and elevating Democratic candidates. And you're absolutely right. If you're not in the top results, if you're not showing up on the first page, less than 1% of people actually go to page 2 for any search. And it's even worse now. Pew Research Center has information out there showing that a lot of times there are these AI summaries appearing at the top of search results. Okay, so that pushes the actual search result links even further down on the page. Not only that, but we're talking about Wikipedia here and Grokipedia. Wikipedia is oftentimes given what's called a knowledge panel just underneath the AI summary, so that pushes the search even further down on the page. And we're finding a Backlinko study has shown that about 40% of people click on the first link. So, you're already below the AI summary. Now you're pushed below a Wikipedia knowledge panel. Then you've got 40% on the first search result. And basically, if you're not in the top 5, you're not getting seen. So these Republican candidates having their campaign websites shoved below that, they're just not even being seen at all. Google is just outright suppressing and interfering in elections, and we have a massive study out on that as well. 41 times that Google interfered in elections. It's a wonderful one to check out on the website if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, and if you aren't able to hear from the candidate directly, which was what you were going to look for in the first place, what are you going to hear from? The negative articles that are put on top of it. Mm-hmm. And invariably, almost all of them are.
Yeah. I was trying to bone up on the Free Speech America content this morning, and I almost forgot that if you're in your car, NewsBusters has you can hit text-to-speech. And they have some AI voice who's like, let me tell you how terrible things are going right now. Whatever it is we write. And I'm like, I never sit around and write and say, how would this sound come out of a bland AI voice? Let's take a flashback for a minute at some fun stuff that they've been digging up out of the MRC archives. This is unbelievable. Diane Sawyer, who used to be known as a Richard Nixon aide, really wasn't like that. She actually compared Hillary Clinton to, I kid you not, Jesus Christ. This is why it's worth digging up again. Yes, Hillary Clinton's political career was so difficult, it can somehow be compared to being crucified to death.
She suffered and died for her sins.
Take a look.
And as we know, this morning there is another groundbreaking crossroads moment. That is for Senator Hillary Clinton, who ran her campaign on her own terms. This woman, as we said, forged in determination and purpose her whole life. As someone said, no thorns, no throne, no gall, no glory, no cross, no crown. What will she do next, and what brought her to this moment?
This is the sort of thing that we have buried deep all over the place, and certainly with Hillary Clinton, it was just it's remarkable. She's not prominent enough anymore to get this sort of glorifying treatment, but she always has, going back to when the Clintons first came on the scene. Now back to our free speech conversation. I want to talk about Al Jazeera. Wikipedia editors greenlit Qatari government-funded Al Jazeera, putting them on the same reliable sources list that Free Speech America exposed earlier this year. Now, but before we get into Al Jazeera, let's consider, this is what the reliable sources list said about the Media Research Center. There is consensus that the Media Research Center and its subdivisions, e.g. CNSnews.com, MRC-TV, and NewsBusters, are generally unreliable for factual reporting. Some editors believe these sources publish false or fabricated information. How dare you? So Al Jazeera is reliable and we're not.
Yeah, let me set the table here. All right, so you mentioned we had a study earlier this year, and it was back in May, if I remember correctly. Wikipedia effectively blacklists all, not just some, all right-leaning sources. This is according to All Sides. They're a media rating firm. They give you a lean left, center, lean right rating across the spectrum of media. And not a single right-leaning source, so that's right or lean right, is given the green light by Wikipedia. So you're exactly right, Tim. It is just laughable. Absolutely laughable that they're saying that the MRC is not reliable, and yet somehow Al Jazeera, the Qatari-funded, Qatar actually housed the terrorists from Hamas,
That's
by
right.
the way. They get the green light, but MRC doesn't. Crazy.
I will add, they have a habit of doing this to their critics.
Yeah.
The ADL, or the Anti-Defamation League, which exposed an anti-Semitic clique of editors methodically changing articles on Wikipedia to make them anti-Israel and pro-Hamas. The ADL exposed this, but the Wikipedia reliable source list says something interesting about the ADL. It says that they're mostly reliable as long as they're not talking about Israel or, and this is key, related anti-Semitism.
Oh my. Well, but in that case, that's sort of their whole bag. I mean, anti-Semitism is what they're all about. Now I should say, since you mentioned that, as you reported, Wikipedia, their reliable sources also say most editors seem to agree Al Jazeera English and especially Al Jazeera Arabic are biased sources on the Arab-Israeli conflict and on topics for which the Qatari government has a conflict of interest. I mean, but that's still putting it mildly.
It is, and despite this small nod to reality, they do not live up to it. I could tell you that there are almost 140,000 uses of Al Jazeera on Wikipedia. But what's even more cutting is that they admit that Al Jazeera is biased on the Arab-Israeli conflict. And they provide a link for the Arab-Israeli conflict. But if you click that link on that very page, you will find Al Jazeera cited multiple times.
Yeah.
And that is true for so many similar pages. It's true for a page full of absolutely vicious smears. In fact, the page itself is a vicious smear. It's called Gaza Genocide.
Okay.
And it takes for granted the accusation that Israel has committed a genocide in Gaza.
Right.
And it's full of Al Jazeera.
Right.
The Gaza war page is full of Al Jazeera. There's even an Al Jazeera reference on the Judaism page.
Jeez. So when you're saying it's, what was the number? 139,754 times they cited it. That's like in the footnotes, and I mean then in the articles as well.
Oh, so yeah, it's that's the total number of citations.
Yeah.
If I were to count the amount of times it appeared in the articles, the number would be much larger.
So that's what we're saying. When you say we're not a reliable source, that means their NewsBusters is cited nowhere as a source of evidence.
Well, it's not that it's cited nowhere. It's that it's not greenlit, which means if you're going to use it as a source, there's all these caveats for when you're allowed to use it, and it's downplayed by the editors. So if you can find another source that's available, which is, if you look at their perennial sources guide, that's all the leftist sources, all the elitist media outlets. You have to use them first.
Yes.
Okay. And then you can't use the alternative.
Well, let's go back to what you did, though, and that is the generally reliable list has things on it like Mother Jones and The Nation and MSNBC. So this is where you say, what you're saying is what's generally reliable are things we agree with. Now, and we're not really acknowledging, say with a lot of conservative sites, they would say, this is all opinion, there's too much opinion. Oh, okay, so there's not too much opinion on The Nation or Mother Jones. I mean,
right. And Al Jazeera, right? Well,
and Salon.
Yeah. Who's Al Jazeera? Well, they've linked Nazism with Zionism. They've minimized the Holocaust. Okay? They've pushed anti-Semitic tropes like the Jews control the media. I mean,
clearly not.
Right? And then they published, I'm not sure if Tom mentioned this earlier or not, but they published a blood libel headline on October 7th.
Oof.
Yeah, so it's the headlines, updates. Israel's genocide continues in Gaza 2 years since the start of the war. Not even mentioning that it was Hamas that attacked Israel on October 7th. So it's Israel in defense of itself is what's happening over there.
So you had that Google News is the only major big tech news aggregator that consistently highlights Al Jazeera. And that included in that article was this headline about Gaza's genocide. So, I mean, it's the media is pro-Hamas enough, but I mean that they all think that Al Jazeera is a reliable source. And of course, back in the day when they had Al Jazeera America on cable systems, on some cable systems, they had Ali Velshi. They had a whole bunch of reporters who came out of American media outlets and then went back into American media outlets. I think Velshi was at CNN.
He's the worst of MSNBC now.
Yes, he went from CNN to Al Jazeera, then into MSNBC, where, yes, now he's the Gaza genocide guy, I guess.
MS Now, right?
Oh, or M. Snow. Don't be M. Snowed. I don't know how that's going to go over, but we all know, whatever they're called, they're still a reliable source, according to Google. So these are the sorts of things that we need a term. We need some sort of like term for the way that that these things go, the way that it aggregators, they just channel these things to people. Our intern this summer, Lucas Escala, did this on the final week or two of his internship and found overwhelmingly the most cited source on Apple News was the Washington Post, followed closely by the Wall Street Journal, the news side of the Wall Street Journal. Still a Murdoch paper. They don't seem to hate the Murdoch paper's news side. I think that shows you that they're still pretty much where they were pre-Murdoch. And then they have, again, as you'd expect, NBC, NPR, CNN, Bloomberg, but also prominently on this list of Apple News sources, The Atlantic. They hate Trump. They've endorsed every Trump opponent, and ProPublica, which, of course, is mostly, it seems these days, it's mostly devoted to trying to ruin conservative Supreme Court justices. So, I mean, where do we go from there? But what do you guys think the next steps are for you guys in terms of looking at these issues?
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. And look, the biggest thing here is that we need to have an informed populace. The founding fathers knew this. That's still true today. And so bottom line is the American public needs to be aware of the source material that they're looking at. So don't just open your phone and just assume, oh, look, here's the latest news of the day. No, where's that source? What's the source? Well, as we mentioned, it's MS Now.
Yeah.
It's Wall Street Journal. It's sometimes the Washington Post.
Yeah.
The New York Times is being elevated to the top of these news aggregators and AI summaries and searches. So know where the information is coming from and look to alternative sources as well. Try to balance your media diet. Now, That's hard to do, right? When all these aggregators and these search browsers and the artificial intelligence chatbots are pointing you in one direction to the left. But that's what you need to do. Know the source information.
Well, and this is what bias by omission does. You go to Thanksgiving dinner. Now, if your Thanksgiving dinner turns political, I try very hard not to do that. Mrs. Graham doesn't want to talk politics over the turkey. But, when you say things like, here's this Democrat scandal, and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Or there's a lot of pictures with Bill Clinton standing happily next to Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know what you're talking about. And they act like you're the crazy one. It's like, yeah, balance your diet. Learn something. Finally, one final thought, one final point. We have the UN Climate Summit. And this is the same things happening down there. They're saying the real global problem we have is misinformation. And what's misinformation at a climate summit? It's anybody who doesn't think the climate is desperately going to hell.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, these are the sorts of things that that we face. This is sort of the things, the free speech America, put the America in there, man. Our American president isn't going down with the UN climate consensus. Something that, again, let's have a democracy. Let's have some free speech. All right, and if you want to know what's going on about all these things, you come to the Free Speech America tag on NewsBusters, the Free Speech America website. Come to NewsBusters once, twice, 24 times a day. Thanks for listening and watching.